Every civilization has a story about the end of the world. Humanity was no different. We imagined asteroids, nuclear war, rogue artificial intelligence, even the death of the sun. We were wrong. The greatest threat wasn't something rushing toward us. It had been quietly measuring us for thousands of years. 3 days had passed since the black spheres appeared around every major human colony. They hadn't fired a weapon. They hadn't broadcast a threat. They simply waited, perfectly still, as though the next move belonged to us. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, the recovered journal remained sealed inside a transparent containment chamber. Every page had been scanned hundreds of times, every fiber analyzed, every trace of ink catalogued. The journal shouldn't have contained any more secrets. It did. While preparing the artifact for long-term preservation, a technician noticed something unusual. The spine of the journal wasn't solid. Hidden beneath layers of material thinner than a human hair was a crystal filament that reflected light in impossible ways. The moment it was removed, the containment room lost power. Not just the room. The entire underground facility. The emergency generators came online 7 seconds later, but nobody remembered hearing them start. Every monitor in the laboratory was already glowing before the lights returned. No alarms. No warnings. Just a single white symbol suspended against a black screen. No one recognized it. The symbol slowly unfolded into hundreds of smaller geometric shapes that drifted through the air like holographic dust. They gathered above the crystal filament, forming a perfect sphere barely the size of a human head. Captain Maya stepped closer despite the protests behind her. Every instinct told her to stop, but curiosity had carried humanity farther than fear ever could. The sphere pulsed once. A calm voice echoed through the chamber. If this archive has awakened, then our civilization no longer exists. The room froze. The voice wasn't translated by any computer. Every person heard it in their own language, with flawless clarity, as if the speaker had spent a lifetime studying them. I was the final archivist of the first civilization. If you are listening, then the observers have entered your system, and your species has reached the stage we once called the threshold. Nobody spoke. For the first time since the black spheres appeared, humanity wasn't listening to a machine. It was listening to someone who had built them. The figure slowly emerged above the crystal. It wasn't a recording in the way humanity understood recordings. It behaved more like a preserved consciousness, responding with subtle pauses and shifts in expression, as though it still expected an audience. Its appearance defied easy description. Tall, impossibly slender, its body shimmered with translucent patterns that resembled moving constellations rather than skin. Where a face should have been, countless points of light flowed together into expressions that somehow conveyed sadness, curiosity, and exhaustion all at once. We were not the first life to evolve, the archivist began. We were simply the first to ask why. Millions of years passed before another intelligent species appeared. Then another. Then hundreds more. We watched them grow, celebrate, fight, discover, and dream. Every civilization believed it was alone. Every civilization believed the universe belonged to it. So we built the observers. Not as soldiers. Not as rulers. Not as gods. We built them to remember. Every language. Every discovery. Every work of art. Every child ever born. Every species that ever looked at the stars and wondered if someone was looking back. For millions of years, that mission never changed. Then, something changed the universe. At first, we believed it was coincidence. One civilization vanished. Then another. Then 5 more within a span so short that even our longest-lived scholars called it impossible. None of them left distress calls. None declared war. Their worlds remained intact. Their cities stood untouched. Their satellites continued orbiting dead planets. Their machines kept working long after their creators were gone. It was as though someone had reached into reality and quietly removed every intelligent mind. We searched for disease. We searched for cosmic radiation. We searched for weapons powerful enough to erase thought without damaging matter. We found nothing. So we expanded the observers. Millions became billions. Every corner of the galaxy was mapped. Every developing civilization was monitored. Every anomaly was recorded. The pattern became undeniable. Every species disappeared within a remarkably similar stage of technological progress. Not when they discovered spaceflight. Not when they mastered fusion. Not when they built artificial intelligence. Always later. Always just beyond a threshold none of us could define. By the time we recognized the pattern, our own civilization had already crossed it. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the stars, something noticed us. Panic spread through our worlds faster than any plague ever had. Entire research divisions abandoned their projects overnight. Governments merged their resources. Fleets that had once fought bitter wars were ordered to patrol the empty regions between galaxies, hoping to find an enemy that refused to leave footprints. We found ruins. Thousands of them. Civilizations older than our own, reduced to silent monuments drifting through space. Libraries untouched. Cities preserved in perfect condition. Power grids still functioning around planets where no living mind remained. The observers searched every system they could reach. They recorded everything, compared every detail, tested every theory. Nothing connected the disappearances except one fact. Each species had reached extraordinary scientific capability only a short time before it vanished. We never discovered what caused it. We never even proved whether it was a weapon, a life form, or a law of the universe we had failed to understand. That uncertainty became our greatest fear. So we changed the purpose of the observers forever. They would no longer exist simply to witness history. They would watch for the signs we had missed. If another civilization approached the same invisible threshold, the observers would gather. Not to judge. Not to attack. But to confirm that the pattern had begun again. No one in the chamber moved. The weight of the archivist's words settled over the room with a silence heavier than panic. Every scientist had spent years searching for proof that humanity was not alone. None of them had imagined the answer would arrive as a warning left behind by a civilization that had already failed. The archivist lowered its head. If you believe the observers have come to destroy you, then you misunderstand their purpose. They cannot stop what follows. They never could. Their creators had tried everything. Entire stars had been enclosed within engineered structures to power impossible calculations. Artificial universes had been simulated. Time itself had been measured differently inside vast computational networks. Every hypothesis ended the same way. Failure. We built the greatest scientific civilization the universe had ever known, the archivist continued. Our knowledge expanded without limit. Our reach crossed galaxies. Yet the closer we came to understanding the universe, the closer the universe seemed to become aware of us. Captain Maya felt a chill she couldn't explain. The Black Spheres weren't an invasion fleet. They were markers. And every one of them had appeared only after humanity reached a point from which no civilization in recorded history had ever returned. The archivist stood in silence for several seconds, as though searching memories that no longer fully existed. When our final century began, we stopped asking how to survive. We began asking whether anyone else could. A field of stars appeared around the projection. Thousands of points of light slowly dimmed until only a handful remained. These were the civilizations that emerged after us. Every one reached the threshold. Every one disappeared. Then another image appeared. One point remained bright. It wasn't labeled with a name. It was labeled with a date. Today. The room erupted with overlapping voices before Captain Maya raised a hand for silence. The archivist continued. The observers do not predict the future. They recognize familiar patterns. They assembled around your worlds because your civilization now resembles ours with 99.8% statistical confidence. The number struck harder than any threat. Not because it promised destruction. Because it suggested that somewhere in the universe, the same sequence had unfolded so many times that it could be measured almost perfectly. Then every monitor in the room flickered. For the first time since the black spheres had arrived, one of them moved. No engine plume appeared. No burst of light. The nearest black sphere simply ceased to occupy one position and existed in another, as though distance had briefly forgotten its own meaning. Within seconds, every observatory on Earth confirmed the same impossible event. Hundreds of identical spheres shifted simultaneously across human space, each stopping at precisely calculated locations that formed a pattern no astronomer recognized. The archivist looked toward the moving constellation. For the first time since the recording began, its composure broke. "We never witnessed this stage." Its voice was quieter now. "Our records end here." The projection began to fragment into drifting strands of light. If our calculations were correct, the observers move only when the next phase has already begun. Captain Maya stepped forward. "What is the next phase?" The archivist tried to answer. Only one word emerged. "Arrival." The crystal shattered into brilliant white dust. At that exact moment, every black sphere emitted a single pulse that swept across the solar system without causing any measurable damage. Every screen on Earth displayed the same message. Connection established. Nothing else. No explanation. No demands. No countdown. Just those two words. Humanity had spent centuries searching the stars for intelligent life. Now the stars had answered. But they weren't speaking to humanity. They were telling someone else that humanity had finally been found. End of episode 3. Coming in episode 4, the signal has been received, and something older than the universe has started moving.